Jesus Christ!
Not quite.
Welcome to In Defense Of, making the case for overlooked, forgotten, or derided movies in 5 minutes or less. If you don't have 5 minutes, here's 5 seconds. Today, In Defense Of, Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth, the 1992 entry in the long-running horror franchise that many identify as the point at which things started to go wrong. But is it?
So cool. Radical.
Investigating a supernatural incident in which a teenager is ripped apart by chains, TV reporter Joey follows the breadcrumbs to tales of Cenobites, pain-loving demons summoned by a puzzle box. She befriends party girl Terry, witness to the grisly death and sometimes girlfriend of nightclub owner J.P. Monroe, who has an unusual sculpture in his bedroom.
Come on over here. Come to Daddy.
Hellraiser is a curious franchise. Currently we're up to 10 installments in total, but in the eyes of most fans, only the first 2 are actually any good. The slippery decline in quality starts with Hell on Earth according to many. Part 4 would take place in space, a common signifier of a franchise collapsing into self-parody. The core plot of Hellraiser 3 concerns series icon Pinhead confronting Elliot Spencer, his human personification as it existed prior to his conversion to Cenobite. It's painfully dull. Pinhead's past as Spencer is hinted at in Hellraiser 2 and it works there because the details are vague. It's compelling to reveal that these monsters were human at some point, but you lose my interest when you tell their entire life's history. It's the same thing in A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and 6, in the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, in multiple Leatherface movies. I don't want my monsters to have tragic backstories. Then they're not monsters anymore. The other Cenobites are a different crew from the previous films and are definitely inferior. These ones are gimmicky. Cameraman becomes camera in the head. DJ becomes CD in the head. I don't understand why arrogant rich boy J.P. Monroe has pistons in the head, other than to continue the in the head theme. They're a definite step down from the unsettling simplicity of the Chatterer or Butterball. Special attention was paid in securing reputable theatre types and strong character actors like Andy Robinson for the first 2 Hellraisers. Most of the acting in Hellraiser 3 is unforgivably terrible, especially Hulk Hogan here.
My first gig that isn't kindergarten kids or diet gurus is taken away from me.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a mystery. But that's all it is, a mystery.
All of that plot stuff with Spencer and the lesser Cenobites that I just mentioned takes place in the second half of the film. The opening half of Hellraiser 3 is up to par with the first 2 films. Elliot Spencer is dull, but Pinhead trapped inside a pillar with his only hope of escape coming in his ability to manipulate with words, that is cool as hell. Putting the focus on Pinhead's dialogue works because it's the strength of his character. He's not a wisecracker like Freddy or Chucky. He's highly articulate, a monologue machine. His attempts to convince J.P. Monroe to bring him fresh meat are the highlight of the movie for me.
Now, can we talk sensibly?
The pillar effects are super. They're a mix of practical, animation and CGI, a very early use of CGI in a horror film, and they mesh well here. Doug Bradley's turn as Pinhead from inside the pillar is predictably great, and despite the attempts of Hulk Hogan and friends, the performances of our core trio are strong. Terry is dumb as a rock, but a sympathetic and vulnerable kid, which plays well against serious reporter Joey. J.P. Monroe is a loathsome brat, his lack of interest in the occult differentiating him from previous series villains. These 4 performances are strong enough to carry the film, at least until Pinhead gets out of the pillar and Terry and JP are killed off at, surprise surprise, the halfway point. And for what it's worth, those first 2 movies aren't as good as people like to remember. They are flawed films carried by their sheer wealth of imagination. Hellraiser can't decide whether it's set in the UK or US, which is incredibly distracting. Primary villain Frank Cotton has some truly awful dubbing, and while charming, these special effects are literally highlight a pen on film strip. Doesn't quite match the film's lofty themes. Hellraiser 2 unbelievably continues with the weird cross-Atlantic setting and introduces the god of hell only to do nothing with it except make the Cenobites seem like chumps. The fact that Hellraiser 3 is 100% definitely set in America is enough for me to give it the thumbs up. Manhunter. I love it. It's one of my favourite films ever. It will get its own review. Hannibal Lecter manipulating from behind bars is incredibly similar to Pinhead's pillar-bound loquacity. I suppose I could recommend Silence of the Lambs too, but I don't like that half as much as Manhunter. One or the other is surely an influence on Hellraiser 3 though.
I am the way.
Hell on Earth is not the weak link it's perceived to be. It's every bit the flawed, imaginative horror the previous ones are, albeit in a different style. Its first half is made by a quartet of strong actors, punctuated by a scene or two of the grisly body horror you'd expect from this franchise. Come for the puzzle box and chains, stay for the surprisingly good performances. Then decide not to stay past half time because it's rubbish. Around about 2005-ish, UK insurance company Direct Line had a series of adverts featuring Doug Bradley. I remember seeing his face plastered all over the tube in London and thinking, nobody has any idea that this is the guy that scared the crap out of them when they were kids.
Better.